to winning isn't easy. How do I get the disability insurance benefits I deserve for mental nervous conditions? Now, I know that mental nervous conditions can make it difficult, if not impossible, to do things around your home and at work. They can damage and even destroy professional relationships. They can result in poor work performance. And if you are having any mental illness issues, psychological issues, and you can't work, then I think you should be considering applying for your disability benefits. But there are a number of steps that you should take before you apply for benefits, stop work, because some of these mistakes we can't fix. So the first thing you need to do is to obtain a copy of your disability policy and see how it defines the terms disability, occupation, self-reported conditions, and we want to understand if there is a mental nervous policy limitation in the policy. So you got to understand as you work your way through these definitions, what it is you have to prove to get your benefits and what limitations, if any, there might be on getting these benefits because of mental nervous conditions. Now, as I've said in blog posts and earlier videos, you can see a policy that's very expansive. You may see one that actually lists all the conditions that are considered mental disorders, or the policy can be silent and you've got to try to figure it out. It's really important that you understand, as I said, what that policy says so that you know how to pick your way through the potential claim denials or terminations that are going to be coming. Secondly, you need to get a copy of your medical records and you need to review them to make sure there's an objective basis of the diagnosis. Your doctor should be giving you some psychological testing to arrive at a diagnosis, and your records should also accurately report your symptoms. So, for example, if you're depressed, you may have a lack of interest in things, a lack of motivation, you might be isolating yourself, and you need to be giving your doctor examples of not only what those symptoms are, but how your symptoms are impacting your ability to function. And of course, your records should be commenting on your restrictions and limitations. The third thing I think you should do is get a copy of your personnel file to see if any of your psychological issues are impacting your work performance. You should also get a copy of your job description and create your own description, not only of your physical duties, but the psychological duties and cognitive duties. What do I mean by that? In these days, particularly when we're all dealing with Zooming, if you will, we are interacting with people remotely, both by phone and by video. We also may be interacting with people on the phone. We may be interacting with people in person. But it's important that the doctor and the disability carrier understand the nature of your duties, both physically, emotionally, cognitively, intellectually, so that the doctor understands, as you're explaining your symptoms, what impact they may have on your ability to perform your occupation. So you want to give that information to your doctor, and ultimately your doctor is going to need to prepare a report or address in the attending physician statement forms the objective basis of the diagnosis, your restrictions and limitations, and the objective reason why you can't perform some or all of the material duties of your occupation. You might even want to keep a diary of your symptoms, and if you're taking psychotropic medication and are having side effects, you should be discussing that in your medical records and documenting that. You want to make sure that the medical records are documenting trials of medication and your response to that medication, so that your medical records are telling a story. Now, remember that many mental nervous policy limitations turn on the language in the policy, and there's no uniform language. It can be what I call the generic mental nervous limitation that says if your disability is caused by a mental condition listed or unlisted in this laundry list, benefits are limited to just 2 years. Or it might be that expansive exclusion that says, hey, if you have a psychiatric condition that causes or contributes to, regardless of how small that contribution might be, benefits are limited to just 2 years. Obviously, these are completely different types of mental illness exclusions and limitations. And I find the cause and contributed language to be problematic. So let me give you an example. In the case of George versus Reliance Standard, it's a Fifth Circuit case. The policyholder, George, was a helicopter pilot who had flown over 20 years, and he had an amputation at the knee. Now, as time progressed, he could no longer wear the prosthetic device, and he couldn't operate the foot controls of the helicopter. He had severe pain at the amputation site. Ultimately, guess what? He was diagnosed with depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. So George filled out a long-term disability claim, and Reliance standard policy had a mental nervous limitation that included anxiety disorders and mental illness. And it was so broad that it limited coverage to just 2 years for those disabilities caused or contributed to by a mental nervous condition. So guess what? Reliance found that George's depression and post-traumatic stress disorder contributed to his impairment, and guess what? His claim was denied. This case ultimately goes up to the federal court, the Fifth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit considers whether his physical disabilities alone were sufficient to render him totally disabled. Now, in this instance, the court reversed, saying, look, George's physical disability was in and of itself sufficient to render him totally disabled. And the question, according to the court, was whether the physical disability alone were totally disabling. Now, I will tell you that not all circuits take this approach. And again, it depends on the language of the particular policy or plan and what the medical records have to say. So before you stop work and apply for your disability benefits as a result of mental illness, and even before you stop work and apply for benefits because of any physical organic issue, you should be getting a copy of that policy, reading it cover to cover so you understand what the game plan is and the limitations are. Got it? Let's take a break.
Are you a professional with questions about your individual disability policy? You need the Disability Insurance Claim Survival Guide for Professionals. This book gives you a comprehensive understanding of your disability policy, with tips and to-dos regarding your disability application that will assist you in submitting a winning disability application. This is one you won't want to miss. For the next 24 hours, we are giving away free copies of the Disability Insurance Claim Survival Guide for Professionals. Order yours today at disabilityclaimsforprofessionals.com.